Hey, YouTubers, it's your boy Domination. This is Back in the Basics. You're gonna do this is how we do Texas, baby. And then get it again. The all over place, 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 all over place. Go get it. It's right back in the basics. You're gonna do this is how we do Texas, baby. Man, I goes back. You know what it is, know what it is, know what it is, know what it is. Real man rise up, fake man rise down. Real women rise up, fake women rise down. Brett the preacher, and today's topic we're going to talk about is, let me ask y'all something. I know is you. What I'm going to say to this video is called WW Third. If you don't know what WW Third is, two W's and a third, mean World War III is going to declare to be headed real soon. If you don't believe me, the video will explain to you it all. What do y'all think of we should go to war with Syria or we shouldn't? I think we shouldn't. As much as we learn about Pakistan and Pakistan and Iraq and all that, we don't need to be going over there. And what we do over there in Libya and kill Gaddafi. I'm gonna tell you something, man. As USA, they're gonna see what the hell is going on in the whole rest of the world. And what do you think people go to war is about? Now, most people are going to say, you sure they're going to say they're going to fight for their country. But it's more than that. They go to war for they can control the oil, drugs, and money. If you don't think that's what this is about, man, you got it wrong. I wasn't went, but I was a little baby when my mother took me to see the Vietnam War. I knew that was about when I visited seeing my dad. It was blood everywhere, man. People actually was dying up there, even though they was trained to die for you for what you gave your whole life for this country. And don't get me wrong, it does. I'm not blaming on the military. I understand military is not perfect. I respect for the men and women who serve everything for this country and what it's all about, and they'll serve their life to it, even though America ain't perfect. But country will do the same thing as well. But World War III will declare. And it's clear real soon, and you better look forward to that because it's going to happen, people. Watch what I tell you. But the video will explain to you what this future is going to be for years to come. If you don't believe me, oh well, suit yourself. Here's the video.
On our broadcast tonight, breaking news as North Korea's leader gives what he calls final approval for a nuclear strike on the U.S. The defense secretary says the danger is now real and clear.
Sharp new warning of all-out war. For the first time, the mysterious and secretive nation has threatened a preemptive nuclear strike against the U.S. It comes as the UN approves tough new sanctions. So how dangerous is the situation?
Thousands upon thousands of North Koreans rallied today around a North Korean general delivering that stunning threat. A first-strike nuclear attack with a vow to engulf Washington, D.C. in a sea of fire.
Thousands gathered in Mashhad, chanting "Death to America," after Obama had said, "America will do what we must to prevent a nuclear Iran." The crowd heard a clear warning from the country's supreme leader. Sometimes the Zionist regime threatens us, threatens to launch a military attack. But I think they also know themselves, and if they don't know, they should know, that if they make this mistake, the Islamic Republic will raze Tel Aviv and Haifa to the ground.
The soldiers fan out in formation, displaying the US flag decorated with a swastika and the Star of David, and then form a sword that cuts through them both. The military parade conducted by the Iranian Republic Security Forces not only shows their deep hatred for the Western Israel, but offers an insight into the fanatical mantra they recite. The parade was broadcasted last week on Iranian television.
The death toll from a new strain of bird flu in China is believed to be at least 6. Authorities in Shanghai have been slaughtering birds at a poultry market in the city after the H7N9 virus was detected in samples of pigeons. 14 people have been reported as having been infected by the strain, all in eastern China.
But there are some legitimate people in here who've done a tremendous job at preparing. But I have to chuckle a little bit when I've seen some of the shows because of the reasons they give. Almost 90% of those on doomsday preppers think there's an absolute total economic collapse coming within 9 months. And even though fundamentals, Austrian economics would say that has to happen or it's true, they underestimate the powers that be who have these power to create and control money, banks, and the press.
And new mini bubbles.
That's right. They underestimate the power of the powers that be to keep this economy floating by adjusting the rate of inflation, balancing inflation versus depression.
Sure, it's a slow, rotting slide. That's what the globalists admit they want. They don't want big events that could wake up too many people.
Exactly.
But that brings up my next question for you. Then I want to get into the presentation that's so important here. Why do you think then so many more people are getting ready?
Well, part of it is that they don't understand the nature of the conspiracy. They don't understand that there's a great, powerful force, not only to take down liberty, which is what their agenda is, but to make sure that they don't get the blame for it. So they're going to use, they blame it on everyone, they blame it on the free market, they blame it on business cycle. It's not the business, it's the monetary cycle created by the Fed. And ultimately, these people are going to escape blame because they're planning a war for us, a third world war, a nuclear war, which in fact will wipe out a great deal of the financial centers and let them to walk away and say, it wasn't our fault.
Getting the Middle East out of the way is just a prelude towards the larger war they want to start.
But it's part and parcel of the larger war because part of that is you've got to build, Russia and China, who are going to prosecute this war against the West, need to have an excuse so they don't look like aggressors. That excuse is being handed to them by our globalist leaders, by this intervention. The underlying cause of all of the intervention is the desire to give the West the reputation of the bully of the world.
Well, China warns against the U.S. plan to strengthen its missile system in Alaska in response to what Washington calls threats from North Korea. Now, a Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman said that any move to increase military capacities will only intensify antagonism and will not help resolve differences. Hong Li said China hopes the U.S. would adopt a responsible attitude and deal with the issue in a cautious manner. The remarks came after the U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel announced Friday that Washington had plans to increase by almost half the number of interceptors stationed in Alaska. Hagel said the decision was made following North Korea's threat of a preemptive nuclear attack against the United States.
And that's what they did in the Slavic countries. That's why in Serbia, in the attack, they went after civilian infrastructure to create hatred against Americans. Americans were popular in Russia and in Serbia and other until they went after civilian infrastructure, bombed bridges and power plants and television stations, not just military targets. Israel did that same thing in the last invasion of Lebanon. They went after civilian infrastructure. No need to do that except to antagonize the population. And you say, why would anyone want to antagonize? People have to understand that there's systematic evil in the world. This isn't just one bad guy looking after his personal interests. This is systematic evil that thinks in strategic ways. We have to learn to think strategically.
It's a three-level chess, and it's a stratagem, a deceptive stratagem.
That's right. And the stratagem is we're going to antagonize the world. It hands Russia and China the excuse to say, we went to war with the West so that we could stop the bully of the world, and the world will applaud. Just as most of the world applauded when Bush, got out of them.
That's why we learned it was really the CIA that leaked out the Abu Ghraib photos, who'd actually ordered it.
That's exactly right.
I mean, all of it is systematic, and then put America's name on the globalist agenda.
Well, all of these strategic antagonisms around the world is meant to set the United States, set the West up, and that's why NATO's involved in this, so that Western Europe is as guilty in the eyes of the world as the West, as the antagonists, the bullies of the world. Ron Paul is absolutely right. They hate us not because of our freedoms. They hate us because we're in those countries, occupying those countries, and worse, our CIA is undermining leaders, changing leadership, getting dirt on leaders so that they can manipulate world leaders to follow the globalist agenda. And all of this is going to eventually end up very bad for the United States. We're going to have a nuclear preemptive strike against this country. The leaders want it. They're preparing for it. They're covering for it. They aren't telling the American people that Russia are building a tremendous nuclear arsenal, even as we continue to disarm, even as they do not disarm, even while we disarm, and we don't tell the American people that we know that they're not disarming. And this is a tremendous charade, an evil charade.
Look around, you've got Russian tanks sitting all over your nation. What is going on? You have Russian troops here. You have Russian missiles here. You are communistic. Your enemy came, saw, and conquered you. You've been had. But they've never been able to finally, completely take away the Constitution. And I still marvel as I watch the thought. With Debbie Kidd going to Washington, and now you're going to have Linda Thompson going as the Adjutant General. Get your guns and come with me. Good grief. Insurrection is not even a good word to use. It is so minor. What do you think you will gain? Use your heads. Use your... What is magic about Washington, D.C.? It is the most corrupt, vile place.
But I see the underground bases. I see the giving away of the Panama Canal. I see the destroying of infrastructure while building an underground infrastructure, and not just physically underground, but a shadow government system. There's instant, evidence everywhere that the elite is, building up towards the type of thing you're talking about.
There is evidence. For example, when I was designing and helping to build and oversee high security homes around the nation, I would find contractors who would say that He's former CIA, he's former Treasury, and they're all building bunkers under the house. So they know that something big is coming. They're not building those bunkers, and the U.S. isn't building huge underground bases and bunkers because of some terrorist threat. They know that a massive nuclear attack is coming. They want that attack to come. But there are secret weapon systems. In fact, it's kept Russia and China for years from attacking the United States. They're afraid of what they don't know about. That's why their espionage is at full fever pitch in the United States, because they're trying to find out what they're really going to face if they attack the United States. And the United States is bending over backwards to appear weak, to give concessions. And, you hear some of these eavesdropping conversations about the Russians. Can't understand those Americans. They seem so stupid. They seem like, we're so easy to infiltrate. They don't realize, though, that our own government is laughing themselves, saying, they think that they...
Because they're only infiltrating one level. They're infiltrating really the stage-managed circus.
And we don't capture and we don't arrest their spies because we want to make them feel comfortable that we're vulnerable, that we're easy to infiltrate.
The greatest threat the United States now faces is the Soviet Union.
Hello?
The Americans have no intelligence.
Undercover agents hiding all over the U.S. No one has any idea who they are. Well, they look like us. They speak better English than we do.
Maybe there's another way.
I would lose everything before I would betray my country.
You're my wife.
Is that right?
The Americans premieres January only on FX.
All 10 charged as Russian spies pled guilty to conspiracy. All 10 were ordered out of the country effective immediately, clearing the way for a spy swap between the U.S. and Russia.
All of those who entered a guilty plea will be boarding a bus which will take them to one of the New York airports to be transported to Moscow.
The betrayal means they'll have to pay a dear price, leave the country many of them raised their families in, and never return. Tabloid darling Anna Chapman's attorney says after spending the last few weeks in prison, she can't take anymore. Most of the defendants seem to have little emotion at the verdict. Vicky Pelias' attorneys indicated she considered fighting the charges, but caved in when prosecutors made her an all-or-nothing offer.
The promises made by the Russian government to my client were $2,000 pension for life.
In exchange for turning over the 10 defendants, Russia will return 4 people convicted of spying on behalf of the CIA. One of them arms-controlled analyst Igor Sutyakin. The question now is, what kind of lasting impact this scandal will have on the already strained relationship with Russia?
And the United States is bending over backwards to appear weak, to give concessions. And, you hear some of these eavesdropping conversations about the Russians. Can't understand those Americans. They seem so stupid. They seem like, we're so easy to infiltrate. They don't realize, though, that our own government is laughing themselves, saying, they think that
they're only infiltrating one level.
But in fact, there are sections that can't be easily infiltrated, and those are not being prepared to save America. They're being prepared only to bring out those secret weapons to prosecute World War III after we've been attacked, after we've been devastated. Because it's very simple. If the American military is intact, the Americans are going to rise up and say, go get those guys, let's prosecute this war and use our own troops to do it. But if our troops are decimated, then we come out and we say, what can we do?
30 seconds left. Just get us in field goal range. 22.
The blackout may run along the entire northwest corridor.
What's going on?
If you're seeing this broadcast, you are in a part of the country no longer controlled by the government of the United States.
They messed with the wrong family.
How did this happen?
There's a new class of weapon. Everything went offline and never came back. They wipe us out, including U.S. Central Command.
And we say, what can we do? And our globalist leaders say, oh, yes, we're no longer a military power. Our only salvation is join together with all the remaining nations, form a new United Nations, probably called the League of Democracies or something. And we'll make this militarized, and as a world organization, we'll go after Russia. Began to say the most important thing is for people to start to think strategically, meaning stop looking at the news alone. You've got to get alternative sources of information. You've got to understand that there's a different underlying agenda. We are not in Iraq because of democracy. We're not in Afghanistan. It's never going to have democracy. It's there for antagonism, for capture of resources, for changing the balance of power in the Middle East, a lot of things that are not good for America. What this means is eventually, when these illusions are stripped away, when this war finally rebels against the United States, in one day, America will go from day to night. And if you haven't prepared in advance, there's not enough time to prepare in 24 hours, even if you saw it that early. Now, it's important not only to not be on the last train out of town. Most people won't even be ready and won't be able to get out of town when any of these nuclear weapons fall, because there'll be absolute panic. There's going to be instant social unrest because nobody is prepared. FEMA can't even hope to handle a national crisis of this emergency any more than they could handle Katrina. Don't even think about getting on the freeways. They'll be instantly clogged. You have to have either got out of town sooner or be prepared to.
The torpedo that sunk the Cheonan and took the lives of 46 South Korean sailors was fired by a North Korean submarine.
North Korea's weapons program continues to intensify. Now surpassed 1,000 missiles.
Global leaders express concern over North Korea's latest atomic test.
Kim Jong-il's government strongly defended its recent atomic test as a rightful response to Western aggression. The president appeared at the UN to call for severe sanctions against North Korea.
This morning comes the news of Kim Jong-il's death. North Koreans greet their new supreme leader, Kim Jong-il's son, Kim Jong-un.
우리 공화국의 통일은 남한과의 한민족을 갖고 올 것이며 경제와 산업의 발전을 갖고 올 것입니다.
Today, our beloved leader, Kim Jong-un, has united North and South Korea, forming the Greater Korean Republic.
Talks to end the Saudi-Iran war have stalemated once again. Meanwhile, damaged oil wells and pipelines burn uncontrollably, deeply affecting world supply.
Although costs at the pump are ready to break the dreaded $20 ceiling.
Across the nation, civil unrest has intensified with the demise of the U.S. dollar.
This is not a retreat, nor are we abandoning our Asian allies.
Under threat of annihilation by the Greater Korean Republic, Japan has surrendered.
Martial law is now in effect. Excessive force will be used.
Hours after the president ordered a freeze on bank withdrawals. We don't know what we will get our next meal from.
The Mexican government has imposed strict immigration quotas, effectively closing its borders to American refugees.
And now, a message from the great leader of the occupied United States.
Greetings to our comrades, citizens of the new America. For the last 2 years, you have known sacrifice, and you have known loss. But surely as dawn follows night, a brilliant sun now shines across the world. It is the light of prosperity and progress, and the burning torch of peace.
President Barack Obama is not bluffing. He is not bluffing.
Now to North Korea, a nation that has nuclear weapons and is tonight threatening to use them against the United States, vowing to attack Washington and engulf the nation's capital, quote, in a sea of flames.
The deteriorating situation with North Korea. All of a sudden, that country's leader has scrapped the armistice that suspended the Korean War. The 1953 ceasefire is now null and void.
You're looking at an advanced weapons
system capable of destroying each of your countries 14 times over. 15 in the case of North Korea.
The succession that the Lord promised to His Holy Church until we will hear the voice of the angel of the apocalypse proclaiming, there is no more time, God's mystery has been executed. At that point, the history of the church will end, together with the history of the world, with the advent of new heavens and a new world.
Thank you, brother Black Child. Thank you. To share that, let me share this video, your video for mine, to let the whole world know. May God help us all. May God help us all for what we try to get through. And that's all I can say about that. And this Back of the Basics. And it's your boy Domination. This is Back of the Basic. Chuck of the Deuce is how we do it, Texas, baby. Until next time.